Welcome to Football Discussion Daily. My name is Joe, here with the co-host
You.
CGO or George. We are releasing this on the 29th of May, 2026. Quick reminder, please like us, subscribe us. We release every single day. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and other platforms. We are going to preview World Cup Group B today. But before, let me run down a couple rumors going around. No confirmed news, but from what I've seen, that I've seen news today that Declan Rice won one of the Premier League Players of the Year. I think that one was awarded by BBC. That is not one of the big ones, but it might indicate the big award, the PFA Player of the Year could go to him. He's definitely a candidate. He's had an exceptional season. There's rumors that Ibrahima Konate is leaving Liverpool. There's been rumors about that for a while. His contract, I believe, expires either this summer or next summer. And so there's just a couple rumors there. There's rumors about Julian Alvarez to Barcelona are heating up, and that, so just a couple small things. And then we're going to go through the World Cup Group B, which is Qatar, Switzerland, host Canada, and Bosnia-Herzegovina. And so Qatar, I'm aware of. This is, I believe, their second World Cup. They hosted the World Cup in 2022. Obviously, they did better than I thought they would in that World Cup, but I think that they're one of the few teams. They have very few players, if any, in Europe. Nobody that I probably heard of that I watch week to week, because I watch a couple of the big leagues in Europe. We have Switzerland, who've been in several World Cups the last couple of years. Got to several knockouts in the 20th century, and still some players around the continent. We have Canada, who is hosting. They have a couple strong players. They've qualified for a couple World Cups. I don't believe they've won a knockout, certainly not in my lifetime. Then we have Bosnia and Herzegovina, who have a very long and storied history as a part of Yugoslavia, but as an independent nation the last 30 years. They've qualified for a couple World Cups, but have never gotten out of the group stage. George, we're going to start with Qatar. And the narrative around these guys is this is the first time they've qualified for a World Cup on their own merit. They've done it as a host nation. Again, last World Cup, they surprised me. I thought they would get beat pretty bad every game, and they look competitive, and that's more than I expected. This team, is it any different? Because they don't have the home field boost this time, but they will have the experience. Do you feel like that balances out? Do you feel like they're going to be competitive? Most people looking at this are going to see this is the weakest team on paper in this division. Do you feel like there's any chance that they could be a lovable underdog?
Joe, the truth is for Qatar, I think their football is coming up, is developing gradually because Qatar, they are the champions of the Asian Football Confederation. They won the last edition, and then even before the last edition, they also won the one that was played in 2019. So a team that has won the AFC Cup is not a team that one would just estimate. What it shows is that their football is coming up. So they won the Asian Cup 2 times consecutively, and credit must go to them. So what it means is that football is gradually improving there. They have some good players in their squad because I think I watched the Asian Cup at the last edition that was played in 2023, and there was one of their players that really caught my eye. His name is Akram Afi. I think he was the player of the competition. Performed exceptionally very well in that competition. So I think this World Cup, people should not really expect much from them, considering where they are coming from. But I'm sure they are going to be very competitive, and it's going to be an opportunity for them to get more exposure to help their football develop. And like you rightly said, this is the first time they went through the qualifying series and able to qualify for the World Cup for the first time. The first World Cup appearance was given to them automatically, being the host of the 2022 FIFA World Cup. So
I think
Qatar,
they have two advantages over last time. Like I think we both said, number one, they qualified on their own merit, and they actually have European players playing in their league, much more so now than they did 4 years ago. Number two, their coach is Julian Lopetegui, who coached Madrid, he coached Wolves, he coached several teams in Europe. I mean, he wasn't the best Madrid coach, but he's an experienced coach. And on paper, he's the one of the most experienced coaches at a club level in this tournament. If I mean Tuchel's above him, but Ancelotti's above him, but very few coaches, certainly in this bracket, in this group, he's the most experienced coach in terms of European experience, which I think will be really helpful for them developmentally. But I do think that, like just like USA in the '80s and early '90s, these guys are seeing this as development World Cup, and I think it'll be really good for the nation. Even if Qatar becomes all of a sudden the biggest best world footballing nation in the country in the world. They're one of the smallest countries in this tournament. I think there's like 1 million citizens or something like that for Qatar. Even qualifying is huge. There's a lot of big countries, Italy, that have not qualified for these tournaments recently. So yeah, I think it's huge for them.
Yeah, so it's just a way for them to get exposure, because one thing that I was so impressed about them is winning the Asian Cup. I was surprised that Qatar could do that, and they did it twice consecutively. 19, they played against the Japanese team. We all know how good Japan is. They defeated Japan 3-1 in the final. The
Yeah.
competition was hosted by United Arab Emirates. Then they won for 2023. They hosted it and they won it. They defeated Jordan by 3 goals. What I feel is the Qatar football is gradually improving, is gradually growing, and I know this World Cup will also help the development of their football. That's what I feel. They
Yeah,
are
like I
not
said,
going
but
there. Nobody's expecting so much from them because I see them as the underdog in this group. So
there's less people in Qatar than there is in like one neighborhood in Tokyo. Like it's just the fact that they beat Japan is so awesome. Good for them. We'll see what they do. George, next team. Let's talk through host Canada. And again, similar to USA, they didn't really have much infrastructure 50 years ago. They started that. They've really developed it. The fact that they're qualifying for consistently for World Cups. Last World Cup, they've had some good football, but I think that they were very naive. I remember, I think it was against Belgium last time they were playing, and they were passing it very well, carving a cart, and then when they got to the final third, there just wasn't the quality. A lot of their players were older. They have Jonathan David is a very good forward in Europe, probably the best forward in this particular group. They have Alfonso Davies, obviously starts for Bayern, very good player. The rest of their team hasn't been able to break into Europe yet. I think Jesse Marsh as a coach does have Premier League experience. Has coached several teams. I think he'll instill a mentality. I think they had a poor mentality last time, but obviously high quality of play. I think that they'll be fun to watch, but still ultimately will lack quality. But this group is kind of wide open. I think again, they'll benefit from weaker groups due to 48 teams instead of 32. And I think that all, like any team, I think they'll have a shot. They'll have to think we can get out of this group and get to the knockouts. What do you think, George?
Joe, Canada, this will be their third appearance at the World Cup. They've been at the World Cup in 1986, and then also in the year 2022, which was hosted by Qatar. Uh, Canada haven't won any game at the World Cup. So, but if you look at these particular uh, players, this sets of players they have, they call them more like the golden generation of Canada. And when you look at players like Alfonso Davies, who happened to be the first Canadian player to score at the World Cup, and then you have Jonathan David. We know what these two guys can do on their good day. You made reference to the game they played against Belgium in the 2022 World Cup,
I remember that
and
game 4 years
they
ago. Yeah,
they played well, but somehow they just couldn't score. And Belgium
you
used the
see it.
experience.
You see it all the time with like championship teams against Premier League teams. You can string together 10 passes and they're beautiful, and you're like, how is this team in the championship? And the defender makes a mistake. The defender just ultimately, I don't want to say it's a mistake, just isn't as good as a Premier League forward. The Premier League forward just sees a little opening and bangs it in. I feel like that was Canada's experience against Belgium. Just it was quality. It wasn't again the mentality was good. There was great passing. The tactics were good. It just ultimately at the highest level, which is the World Cup, it's the quality, and especially in front of finishing, that really matters. So again, but it was beautiful football.
But Joe, one thing I feel is being that they are one of the co-hosts of this World Cup, I think that's going to be a very big advantage for them because they'll be playing at home. I will not be surprised if Canada qualifies to the round of 32. I'm thinking in this group, we might have Switzerland most likely finishing top, and then Canada might finish second.
Yeah.
That's my own calculation because they have the players that can do it. And Alphonso Davies, who plays for Bayern Munich, we know the quality he has. We know what Jonathan David, who plays for Juve, we know what he can do. So they have
George,
good
question
players
for
that.
you. I think so. Do you think Jonathan David right now is better than Edin Dzeko was at the peak of his career?
When it comes to putting the ball at the back of the net, that is when it comes to being prolific. I think Eddie Dzeko has that advantage. But when it comes to pace, I think that's where uh, Jonathan Davids has
Yeah.
an edge because Dzeko is. If you watch most of the game, Bosnia and Herzegovina has been playing, and you see Dzeko play, you see that it's not too much involved. Sometimes, like he's missing out of the game, but just a magical touch, just a moment, you can still just get them a goal. So that's the kind of thing. He's playing with experience because somebody who is 40 years old is not he's not a young
Yeah.
person. So you don't expect him to
No.
be running around
George, that's what I
pressing.
said at the peak of his career. Obviously, no one is expecting Edin Dzeko to run his butt off 90 minutes. I think that you see strikers, especially older strikers, get in there. And the reason I brought up Dzeko is I do feel like he's a big leader for this Bosnia team. This is an easy transition to this Bosnia team. I watched one of their knockout games. They won two knockout games to get to this World Cup on penalties. On paper, their squad is weaker, but I watched this team play. They have a very strong mentality. You can tell they change up their play actively and the level of intensity as the game situation allows. This team has a mentality instilled in them. Edin Dzeko as a leader is probably, in terms of this division, this group, probably the most experienced in Europe in terms of the level of teams he's played on. Jonathan David, I think we're splitting hairs between Jonathan David and where Edin Dzeko was 10 years ago in terms of his
No,
quality. But
definitely, Eddie Dzeko is a better
yeah,
player than Jonathan
right.
David.
But right now, Jonathan David is a better player because he's 26 and Dzeko is
He's-
40, right? But
yes.
Edin Dzeko can still finish, and he scored a goal or two in those two knockout games, and he proved that he can finish, and he's very valuable. We'll see. I think we'll see across this, and I think at the international level, that pressing, that physicality matters a lot less. Like if you're watching Premier League week in, week out, it's very hard to compete if you don't have that. But in international play, because it's a little bit slower, the tactics are a little less complex. Just because teams have 2 months a year to practice rather than 10 months a year, it's just a little bit more a game where you can get away with. I can only finish, and I'm 40 years old. I think the Dzeko can make a
There's one thing.
difference.
Yeah, but there's one thing we still need to talk about the Canadian team. I think they have a coach who really understands the game well. Jesse March, the US coach, who is the coach of Canada. Since he became the coach of Canada, I've noticed a very huge improvement in the team. And if you look at when they participated in the last Copa America, they did so well, competing very well with South American teams. So I feel now that they are playing at home, they are going to have the home support, and then with the quality of players they have, I have that confidence that they will most likely get their first victory at the World Cup and most likely move to the round of 32.
Yeah. I think they'll benefit from the weaker group stage because and the extra team that gets in because again, it's easier to get to the knockouts in this tournament just due to the way it's structured, and it's easier to get first and second in group just due to the way it's structured in terms of watered down. I was never impressed with Jesse Marsh at Leeds when he was manager there, and I'm most familiar with his career there. I saw a little bit about him in on the continent, and I know he had done good work there. So that's really good insight for me, George. I have not watched Canada under him, so I'll make sure to watch. I'm really excited. George, last team we have is Switzerland, and I think on paper this is probably the best team. They have several players around Europe. They have obviously the World Cup pedigree. Fun fact: I'm sure George, you know this. They played the entire, I think it was 2006 World Cup or 2010. Did not concede a single goal the entire time. They went out after
Yes.
penalties on a 0-0 knockout tie. Was that 2010 or 2006, George?
No, that was 2006.
Okay. But
in
the
Germany.
only team to do that, to not concede a goal the entire tournament, they still
Yes.
lost in the round of 4. But they've won several knockout games in the 20th century. They have several players around Europe. Granit Xhaka, of course, had a great season at
Of course.
Sunderland, has played at Bayern
Yeah.
Leverkusen 2 years ago, went undefeated. Obviously had a great career at Arsenal as well. So they have Manuel Kanji, who was a part of the treble-winning Man City side, is still under, I
Yes.
think he's 30. So very experienced defender. George, they have a reputation of always being tough to beat, and I don't think they're going to concede 0 goals, but their defense has a reputation for being strong, and they've always struggled to score goals, and that's their reputation. Do you feel like that's warranted with this current iteration of the team?
Well, when you look at the group where they find themselves, I think they are the most experienced. They are the most. I think they have better players than other teams in this group, and that is one thing I see will give them cutting edge over the rest of the. This is their 13th. This will be their 13th appearance at the World Cup. So what it shows is that they are not. It's not a new team. When the World Cup is not something new to them. So though their best ever finish in the World Cup has been the quarterfinals, which they achieved in 1934, 1938, and then in 1954. Now, one thing I've loved about the Swiss, especially in the last, let me say from 2006 World Cup, they have been very, very consistent. I don't think there is, I think they're one of the teams that have consistently come to the World Cup since 2006 World Cup. And most times they always get to the round of 16. But I'm thinking a time has come where they need to at least advance beyond the round of 16, at least get to the quarterfinal like they did in 1934, 1938, and 1950. At
Okay.
least that would be a more um,
So George,
acceptable
I
improvement.
just looked this up. Switzerland in their 100-year history has never won a knockout game at the World Cup ever.
They have never won a knockout game. Switzerland.
Switzerland, yeah. So the quarterfinals, that was when the World Cup's a lot smaller. So if you get out of the group, you're automatically in the
Of
quarterfinals.
course,
So,
but
yeah.
that's it's also part of their history.
Italy, they beat Italy in the last Euro in the knockout 2-0. I remember that game. And Italy, again, they were defending champions of Euro. We can clown on them for not qualifying for the World Cup, but they're full of professionals who played in Europe their entire careers. So they do have a pedigree. This Switzerland team does have a pedigree in European in the Euro tournament, which is arguably harder than the World Cup to win a knockout just due to the structure and the format. So it, George, I'm with you though. I think this team, given the group and the quality, will be very disappointed not to make the knockouts. It will be seen as a failure, and I think that they have to have a goal of we're going to win a knockout. And I think that anybody's going to struggle to beat this Switzerland team. I just look around and I see talented players who have played around Europe, and I know I'm familiar with these guys from their club games, and they're very strong players.
Yeah, if you look at, they have very good players. Even their goalkeeper, Gregor Kobel, who keeps for Borussia Dortmund, that's a very fantastic goalkeeper. You've
Yes.
made mention of Manuel Akanji, who was a former player of Manchester City, now playing for Inter Milan. He's a very good player, a player that I think would help the team at least to go far in this competition. And then we can't forget about Granit Xhaka. Granit Xhaka has been a maestro in the Sunderland team. We see how he's able to marshal instructions to other players on the field, try to
George,
coordinate things. So such a player is going to be a very important player in this squad.
George, final question. What do you think the order of this group is? 1, 2, 3, 4.
I think Switzerland will finish first, Canada will finish second, Bosnia Herzegovina will finish third, and then Qatar will finish fourth.
I think Qatar will be fourth. I think Canada third. I'll say Switzerland second. I'll say Bosnia first. I think they'll have the quality to pull it fourth. I just like their mentality, and it'll be really interesting. I think they'll be entertaining. I remember watching them. They definitely their fans bring the most passion. I think they're a very fun set of fans. So it's exciting. Close out with the final questions. Number one, do you guys group? Do you think that Qatar? Me and George both think they'll get fourth. Does anybody who's watching or listening think that they have a chance of qualifying for knockout? Number two, Jonathan David now or peak Edin Dzeko? George and I both say Edin Dzeko. I'm very curious as to your reasoning if you think it's somebody else. Number 3 is Jesse Marsh. How do you rate him as a coach? Do you think he could go back to Europe and be a great coach? And number 4, again, who do you think is going to win this group? Who will get second? Who will get third? Who will get fourth? You've heard George and I's predictions. We'd love to hear yours. Thanks for listening.